Welcome to the Female Stoic Podcast. My name is Stephanie Poppins, and I am an advocate for literary empowerment. That means I believe the examples set by the literary masters can broaden our life perspective, create increased self-awareness, and empower us to overcome the obstacles we encounter here in the 21st century. By listening and referring what we hear to Stoic philosophy, we can foster a strong sense of self and navigate the world more effectively. This podcast takes the form of both discussions and meditations. And if you like what you hear, you might consider looking me up on my socials, where I post empowering videos every day. Or you may like my classic audiobooks and original stories available on my website, neworldbooks.co.uk. Happy listening. I'm going to be answering a question from Emily, and she messaged me. She's in Maine in the United States, so quite a long way away from me here in Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. Again, just to recap, I'm going to be answering a question from Emily in Maine, and today Emily has asked me about how to take time for herself. She says, "I'm scared to begin." This was the message. "I cannot make up my mind what it is that I want. I want to do something, but it's getting to the point that it's too confusing. I've got a lot to deal with. I have 2 children, I have a partner, and they keep me very busy. But I don't want to lose touch with who I am." And I thought this was a really good question, because as women, that's so easy to do, isn't it? To lose touch with who you are as a person, your original identity, because there are so many demands on us all the time. And I'm getting from this question that she's scared to begin. She's scared to try something new, or she's scared to actually say, you know what, I need some time for me. And I don't know how to say I need some time for me, because I don't even know what I need it for. She's thinking that she'd have to set a goal, but she doesn't really know what it is she wants. She just knows she needs to tap into the original, the OG, the original her. And she feels like she's losing touch with who she is, and this is a common problem. So let's get into it. As always, in these lives, we're going to be using examples set by Stoic women, as well as the Stoic philosophers, to guide us. And our Stoic women today are the Bronte sisters. They had many external forces pulling at them every day of their much reduced lives. Okay, so they lived a lot shorter a life than we did, but they still managed to honour their higher selves and achieve their goals. Okay, so my answer, to go back to Emily, my answer to her question is, well, let's start with our faithful journals, she says, not having her journal to hand. Goodness me, what are you doing, Stephanie, today? But yeah, as I always say, guys, as you know, get your journal and let's keep that to hand, because that's going to help you. Okay, so we've got Epictetus, we've got Seneca, and we've got Marcus Aurelius. All of those philosophers journaled religiously. So every day Okay, every morning they were checking in and they were saying, right, okay, what are my thoughts for the day? What am I going to start off with? What am I going to feed my soul first thing in the morning? Okay. And of course, as always, I refer to the literary masters, of which I have a lot of knowledge. As you know, I read the audio books and I have a wealth of understanding about classic literature and the plight of many people in classic literature, specifically women. So again, we're referring to the Bronte sisters. So the Bronte sisters also journaled. They wrote letters and they also journaled to give them guidance as to the structure of their day, what their day was going to look like, and just to tap in with that higher self, the Stoic higher self. And as we know, they were influenced somewhat by the Bluestocking group. They had connections with, they had sympathies with this Stoicism that was promoted by Elizabeth Montagu, Elizabeth Carter, obviously, having translated the works of Epictetus. So all of this is interconnected. It all weaves in quite a colourful tapestry of ideas. But the core message here is we have to tap in, beginning of the day, to who we are. Not lose focus, not lose sense of that original, authentic self. Because, of course, over time, external forces are moulding us into something that maybe we were not particularly destined to be. And this is the struggle, going back to the question that I was messaged, that I was asked on a message by Emily from Maine. She says, I'm scared to begin. I cannot make my mind up what it is that I want. I want to do something, but it's getting to the point where I'm confused and actually it's stressful even thinking about it. So I keep putting it off. I have 2 children and a partner, which keep me very busy, but I don't want to lose touch with who I am. And that's what these sessions are about, is about tapping into some kind of framework we can use in order to get back to that protection of our higher self, that person that lives within our inner citadel, that we are protecting against external forces, because that's what they're there to do. They are there. The world is there to mould us into what it wants us to be. And what we are doing is saying, well, actually, I'm willing to take the time to remind myself of who I want to be. She has very many external forces pulling at her all the time. And yet she wants to carve some time out for herself, but she's not really sure why. She's got this nagging feeling, I should be tapping in with who I am, but I don't really know what I want, and why do I need to do that anyway? And so many people are asking me so many things all the time that I really don't have the time for this. But this inner child is saying, you are not ignoring me. And that's why, part of why I promote Stoicism and I call myself a natural born Stoic is because I have been very careful about the decisions I have made. I have come to life decisions historically through a measured approach for that reason, because actually I came from quite a chaotic environment and I decided, right, well, it's time to carve out some kind of continuity. And what is the ultimate continuity, the ultimate stability? It is what you are protecting in your inner citadel. That is your stability. That core set of values, of virtues, right? And as Stoics, we say, well, we have the 4 principles. And upon those 4 principles, we lay our foundations, and we hold those stable, no matter what external forces are doing. And this is what's happening to Emily, is she is having this little voice of reason nagging at her, sitting on her shoulder and saying, don't forget yourself. I'm not going to give you a big plan as to what you should be doing or how you should be doing it, but don't forget yourself too. Okay, so to go back to the journaling, it's here we should always begin. We cannot always remember our ideas, even our virtues. It's not that easy in a busy life to tap into the core sense of who we are. It's not. So, to have something written down, to have something that is a measured account of what we are feeling at any one particular time is helpful, because we can tap into that. We can physically see it. It's a physical acknowledgement of our thoughts. Okay? So, if we have it to hand now, great. If we don't after this live session, if any ideas come up that are fresh in your mind, note them down. Take that commitment to having some little book somewhere, or maybe even on your phone, those notes, okay? And to honour that intention to make a note every day. They don't have to make sense, okay? But they have to be an honest, authentic reflection of your thought at that time. So if in Emily's case that was all she did, she just took that commitment to doing that, to taking 10 minutes out, that will be enough to satiate that desire in the first instance. Okay, and of course we have to come to this from a place of abundance. I have enough time. I'm always claiming my time. I always have this time. And when we come to our intention from a place of abundance, we pull everything into alignment. So if I'm a busy mother and I have lots of different demands, if I make myself unavailable, let's say, within reason, if I'm protecting my space for 10 minutes every day to do my journaling, but I'm coming to it from a place of abundance, I always have that time. Didn't you know? I always used to take 10 minutes out, and I'm going to start doing that now. Everything else will pull into alignment. Reasonable requests will be honoured. Because actually, if you come to it from a place of logic, you say, well, it makes sense that I would need to honour myself in order to be fit enough to be an adequate parent, wife, sister, daughter, so on. An adequate, to commit to this relationship adequately and to come to it as my higher self. And that's what Stoicism is about honouring our higher self, honouring that which represents our virtues, our morals, our values. And it's a daily endeavour. It never stops. And because it never stops and we have to keep working at it, sometimes we need a little bit of help. And that's what the journaling is about, a little bit of help. Okay. It's like our higher self written down just to remind us, oh yes, did you forget about that? So by writing down, we can write down intentions that we can review our progress. We don't have to be that structured about it, but it can help us stay motivated, can help us stay focused, connected to our aspirations, no matter how small they are. And we are talking in a busy life, small. They can be really small. Okay, it doesn't have to be a huge, I am going to achieve stardom in the next year. You know, it doesn't have to be an enormous goal. But what it should be is something we can commit to, small enough that we can commit to regularly. And this is why I like journaling, because that's not a huge commitment. What we're doing when we're journaling is saying, I commit to knowing that I do have a book somewhere, and I'm going to commit to keeping it in the same place so I know where it is. I have a commitment to keeping a pen handy. I have a commitment to this time every day. I have a commitment to honouring my higher self. Now, when you put this into action, they're small commitments. They're not large. They are attainable. And that's what we're seeking to do here. We're seeking to make this attainable for everybody, as we spoke about Emily, who sent in the question. That's a huge busy life she has. 2 young children, a husband, a home to run. Maybe she's working a little bit. So that's attainable even for her. And coming to it from a place of abundance. I always have this time, didn't you know? Oh, this is Mummy's time. Oh, this is Stephanie's time. Oh, this is Emily's time. What we're saying is, this is my time. I have spoken about this many times before. So we are fostering self-awareness. We're remaining connected with our higher self. That person. And it's hard to remember sometimes. And we have waves throughout our lives where we remember them more, and then we forget them, and then they come back as we develop. That person who is born with energy, born with excitement, born with a vision of what their life would look like. And we're devoted to progressing and growing. And it's quite hard to remember who that person was. And that's part of what this guidance is about tapping into that, because that is our higher self. That is us before external forces moulded us. So we owe them that, right? Okay, so we're going to go back to the essence of what journaling is. So you open the book. And what do? You look at a blank page. We can begin with a declaration. Who am I? Who am I? That's a huge question. If that's too difficult, what do I like? What is it about me that I like? And then from that we say, what is worthy of receiving my life energy today? And we should be able to put our name on that list. What is worthy of receiving my life energy today? The people around me. Maybe the job that I'm doing. Maybe the chores that I have. Maybe the communication with the next door neighbours that I promised that I would do X, Y or Z. But we must be somewhere on that list. We need to check in with our higher self. This is the voice that Emily, who wrote in, this is what it's saying to her. Don't forget yourself. You don't have to have an answer. You don't have to know what your goal is yet. You don't have to have any answers. What you do have to do is say, I'm committed to find out. I'm committed to going back and having a look. That's a small commitment. That's bite-sized. That's attainable for all of us. What do I stand for as a person? And in our journals, we can note those aspirations and over time begin to recap, revise, remember those aspirations we once held, those plans we had before life took over. And this is what Stoicism's about. if you allow external forces to overtake your life, to open up your inner citadel and let it all in, you are inviting chaos. Okay? Your emotions are fleeting, as we know, chaotic. Other people's emotions and experiences and demands are chaotic. And what we are seeking to do is shut down the inner citadel and protect and honour our higher self. And Emily is challenged to do that every day because she has such a busy life. Let's have a look at the life of the Bronte sisters. Now, what I do, as you know, is I refer to the the classic literature that I read to quantify this, because it's important for us to tap into history. It's important for us to look back at people who have already walked the walk, who have already taken a path, navigated that path, and some of them somewhat successfully. I would argue that the Brontes navigated that path successfully. So let's have a look at them. We've got many sisters to start with. We have a husband and wife to begin with, and we have much death. We have much hardship. We have much illness. And we have not quite poverty, but huge financial complications within their family setup as time went on. But they adhered to this largely Stoic value system. And this raised their standards, and this allowed them to be, even though they weren't particularly well-to-do, they did have connections with some of the upper middle class and actually landed gentry in some cases. And they had access to knowledge, the acquirement, the better of themselves. They had that opportunity and they took it despite the chaos that was going on around them. And in those days, as we know, illness was prevalent, and you only have to read Jane Eyre, you only have to read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall to understand the challenges they faced. What with Brother Branwell being a bit of a wild card, with his adultery, with his alcoholism, be it being sent to school where their peers were dying around them and there was illness was rife, being witnessing the death of their sisters, being told and, obviously beholden to the care of their relatives, and then having to go and work themselves from a young age to teach others who were not always as welcoming and as receptive of their knowledge as children might be. So it was challenging. They were pulled at every which way. But of course you could say, well, none of them married, so they didn't have those demands. They didn't have children, although Charlotte did marry. But they lived a shorter life. And in that time, if you picture actually what they achieved, with the stoic resilience that they had, the determination to honour their own goals and their own mission, in spite of a very demanding life, we can see that actually it is possible. Especially seeing as this was not just one, this was many of the sisters. So let's go back to the Stoic philosophers, particularly Epictetus, who emphasised the importance of self-knowledge and inner strength as the foundation for a fulfilling life. Now, as we know, the Bluestocking group, particularly Elizabeth Carter, translated the works of Epictetus and referred to those, and this obviously had a knock-on effect with the other women of that time that were seeking for self-betterment. And Epictetus said, true freedom and happiness comes from focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, judgments and actions. So in the case of Emily from Maine, who messaged in, it is within her control to carve out a space for herself, albeit a very small one. This is still within her circle of control. It is then up to her what she does with that time. But if she is honouring her higher self, she will commit to the betterment of her higher self at that time. And that is down to us to make that commitment. So by understanding ourselves and our values, says Epictetus, we can cultivate an inner resilience, an authenticity, regardless of external circumstances. And that's what we're seeking to do. We are seeking to carry on regardless, which is what the Brontes did. And you only have to listen to my audiobooks to hear the beauty, the mastery of the language of what they achieved. Female literary giants. And their endeavours stand as testament to how this Stoicism can work and continue to benefit us today. So you've got the needs and the wants of your family. You've got all these external forces. We as Stoics accept those. We don't deny those. We accept the lessons taught to us, the demands placed upon us by external forces. We understand they will always be there. We can choose to acknowledge and manage those. You don't have to be beholden to them, because there's nothing we can do. They're not going to change. But we don't allow them, we don't permit them to attack our inner virtue or our morals. Because that's like expecting life to treat us with dignity when we practice internal low standards. If we are not protecting our inner citadel and we are not too concerned about our own morals and values, we can't really expect others to respect that. So it comes from within. Even in that nurturing, accommodating role, even in that role of mother or parent, we still have to maintain the protection of our inner citadel. So this is essentially about raising our profile from within. When we raise ourselves up, everything becomes easier. But it's a challenge to get there. It's a challenge to start. And that's what Emily's saying. I'm getting confused and I'm getting upset with myself, but I don't really know why. I don't really know what I want of myself. I just know I want something. What shall I do? And that's my advice. You start off with carving out a little space for yourself, coming from a place of abundance, saying this is my time, and using your journal to find out who you really are, because it's easy to lose sense of that on the way. And life reflects what we accept. It's not that we're not capable of doing that, but we've neglected the environment in which it can flourish. We have turned our back on what once was second nature as a young person. And it's time to step back into that life where everything has dignity and we have purpose. Things don't have to be perfect in order for that to happen. You don't have to wait till the sun's shining, everybody's out of the house. You can say, right, this is my 10 minutes. The idea is that you create that no matter what. Every time we delay, it accumulates. Every time we put it off, we are building up this invisible pressure. Every time we say, it's just okay, I don't need that time for myself today, we are numbing ourselves. And that's why Emily is in turmoil. And attaining our higher self means facing the things we're avoiding, and she's avoiding it, and actually it's hard to work for her because she's avoiding it. If she just faced it and said, you know what, put my hands up, it's going to be awkward at first. I'm going to have to say to everyone, you know, I've got this 10 minutes and this is my 10 minutes and that's that. And everybody's going to kick off because we're not used to you having 10 minutes. Why do you need 10 minutes? But I need this. But once that respect, that inner respect, is established and protected, everybody falls into alignment. So what are we saying? We're saying it's not everybody else. We are going to have to change something. And that's difficult. People don't like change. But actually this change is for self-betterment. We are aiming to live our lives with integrity. We are aiming to attain our higher self, tap back into that person. And every positive action we make, especially if it's small and regular, is proving to ourselves, is proving to our subconscious, actually, I can ask. I can be true to myself. I am living for real. This is my choice. And I am restoring my inner power very slowly. It does not every major achievement happened in an explosion. The largest achievements happen drip, 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 very slowly over time. Because it takes a time to build those foundations of intent. And we don't need to be. It doesn't mean we're not being kind. As women especially, we're hardwired to be amenable, to be yes people. And that's very important that we project that in our relationships, because that is the beauty of womanhood. But not at the cost of ourselves. We should not have to suppress ourselves for that. We should not have to put our higher self at risk for that. Because when we do, it makes us question ourselves, and there's nothing worse than feeling, I'm not sure why I feel uncomfortable, unsatisfied, unfulfilled. But I know something's wrong, and not being able to help yourself. And again, you know, this for me is the beauty of Stoicism. The understanding of the dichotomy of control. I can control everything inside myself. I can control my thoughts, my actions, my desires. Can't control whatever's going on outside of that. And I also can't control my emotions. But I understand they're fleeting and they do not represent stability. They represent chaos. So I am not going to make my decisions based on my emotions, because that would be a mistake. Emotions are fleeting. They're not stable. If every time in the Bronte household someone died, everything fell apart, there would be no tenant of Wildfell Hall. Anne only lived until she was 30. There would be no Jane Eyre. Charlotte saw so much misery was beholden to so much struggle. Now, I'm not suggesting we all go out and write Jane Eyre, okay? We have to follow our own path. And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything that's unattainable. It just has to be something that we can honour, so that we know in our life we've been true to ourselves. In the case of the Brontes, we've got household chores in the morning, we've got teaching in the day, we've got household chores in the afternoon, we've got mending clothes, cooking, cleaning, looking after the sick. And then perhaps after dinner, more chores, but yet they would gather to write in the evening, even if it was just for half an hour. They would by candlelight or oil lamp. They did not spend their time idly. They carved out their time and they committed to that time. And they were determined to have their voice in a male-dominated industry, the literary field. And they used what little freedom they had to do that. And Bronte said, "All our talents increase in the using, and every faculty, both good and bad, strengthens by exercise." She's acknowledging there that we need to exercise our intellect or our desires that are moving into something we are building every day. Our talents, our time. All our talents, she said, increase in the using, and every faculty, both good and bad, strengthens by exercise. It's a continual commitment. It's a daily acknowledgement. I am working towards honouring my higher self. And it doesn't matter what we're doing in that time. Journaling, creativity, reading, learning, personal development. We can elevate anything we like to that protected position, and the family or those around us will align. And it's important to realise we cannot do the job we have, specifically as a woman, mother, daughter, sister, wife, unless we check in with our higher self. We cannot do it sufficiently. And especially if we are rearing children or caring for the sick, or our energy is being, used for the betterment of somebody else, we cannot do that effectively without checking into our higher self. And in our minds, that's important to say. It's important to write in the journal. I can't do this job effectively. I can't be what they need me to be unless I have this time. It's not an option. It's a necessity to keep going. And by reframing this situation in a controlled way, using facts, we're not using emotion. Okay, we're not saying, you won't let me have this time. I can't honour all the things you will want from me. You're always asking. I never have. We're not coming from a place of emotion. We're coming from a controlled argument using facts. It's not possible to continue in this way unless I have time to tap into who I am. And in order to get the best from me, you need to respect this boundary. And of course, that conversation starts with you respecting your boundaries first. If you do not respect your boundaries, I'll take some time out tomorrow. It'll be okay. I'll have some time at the weekend. It's a daily commitment. If you're not respecting your boundaries, you cannot expect those around you to respect them, because they won't. And yes, it's exhausting. Why do I have to do this? But you're doing it for yourself. You're pulling everyone into alignment for the betterment of yourself. And it's worth investing in you. It's worth investing in that initial child that was so full of plans and dreams. And with this, Charlotte Brontë says human life and human labour were near in Jane Eyre. I must struggle on, strive to live and bend to toil like the rest. I must struggle on, strive to live and bend to toil like the rest. We are not saying at the cost of anything. We are not saying we neglect our responsibilities for this. We do struggle on, and life is a struggle. But we are still committed to the protection of our higher self. And these are Jane Eyre, the character Jane Eyre's words as she's grappling with her circumstances and her desire for independence. She's not negating the relevance of her situation, but she stays, as we know in the novel, she stays true to her morals and her virtues, no matter what. And of course, in order to do this, we have to know ourselves and what our morals and values are. We're only going to know that by tapping into that. One of the Stoic principles is knowledge. Know thyself. Take the time to establish who you are, what you will and what you won't accept from life. And consider this when you are making those big decisions. Rather than falling through life, make a commitment to tap into that higher self regularly. Epictetus says, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. Know first who you are, then adorn yourself accordingly. It's important to have a strong sense of who you are. And if it's been a long time since you ask yourself that, it's important to get back to that now. Start today. Okay? These are facts. They're not coming from a place of emotion. We're not saying, I just need this time. I'm shattered. I'm going to take this time for myself. I'm shutting the door and you all have to deal with it. We're saying, I cannot be who I am without taking this time. And I cannot be an effective person in this environment unless I have this time. So we begin today. And we can't fix everything at once, but once we begin, we're teaching ourselves, our subconscious, I can. And that's what 99% of life is about, confidence. The confidence to make decisions, take chances, try new things. And that confidence we had once. And it's our job to find it again. And that's what Stoicism represents. The steady, the static, the stable. And everything around is chaos. And that's all we're trying to do here. We are trying to create time and space in a chaotic world to make sense of who we are, our place. And we are referring to the Stoic philosophers, and we are also using literature. And if you tap into those audio books and you just stick them on and you lay back and you relax, you will see that there are many words of wisdom to be had. I'll see you next time.